You're watching It's Life Live with your hosts, Juan Lee and Oliver Marcel. Come join us for enriching, enlightening, encouraging, and thought-provoking conversation. Let's go.
What's up? What's up, everybody?
Hello. What's happening,
Man, I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of It's Life, and we are live. How's the week been? It's Wednesday.
Week was pretty good, man.
It's hump day.
Yes, it's normal, somewhat normal week for me in terms of just the things that I do about my day to day. Now, I had a really cool experience yesterday, though.
Okay.
A friend of mine is the owner of a golf apparel company, up and coming premium brand. Shout out to Fairways and Putts, premium, up and coming premium brand. Yesterday, I got to hang out with and meet the very first commercial, if you want to call it, rapper ever. So do you know who if you think back to the beginnings of hip hop,
you're talking about the 80s.
What is the first group to really be mainstream?
Sugar Hill Gang.
Mm-hmm. I got to I don't know if I could show you this picture. I don't know if you'll see it.
Yeah.
That is Master G from
All
Sugar
right.
Hill Gang.
Mm-hmm.
So yesterday I was out in Temple Hills. They do, I don't know if you've heard of this thing. It's called the Front Porch Freestyles.
You talking about Temple Hills on my side of the country?
I was on your side. Yeah, I was on your side yesterday for a little bit.
Oh, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, in Temple Hills, they do this thing called freestyle, front porch freestyles. Okay. And it's literally what it sounds like. It's a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy took his house and turned his house into basically his porch is a stage.
Mm-hmm.
And they bring in artists, man. Like, I mean, everybody you can think of.
Wow.
Has been on the front porch. And so yesterday, Master G was on the front porch. Master G is a huge, not sponsor, but he is a huge fan of the golf brand.
Okay.
And so he invited the owner of the golf brand out, and I did a reel. I edited a reel for those guys recently with Master G in it. So I got to tag along. So it was kind of cool.
Well, dog, I tell you, you gone Hollywood on us, ain't you? You done gone Hollywood. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like, man, all of these guys that you know, for folk who are hip hop heads, all of these guys who are your favorite artists today would not be if it wasn't for that guy.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, you know, and to be honest with you, I said the 80s. They came out in the late 70s.
I was 70s. Yeah, that's true.
They came out in the late 70s. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, hey, that's it. That was it. I mean, well, look, everybody. I tell you, we got a celebrity with us today. We got a celebrity with us today. So, but the one thing that we're going to talk about that makes all of us common folk is that we're going to have a very good conversation tonight. I think it's timely. It's a conversation that's necessary.
Matter of fact, I'm going to throw this up right now.
But at the same time, and that which we just put out, and I don't mean to jump ahead of ourselves, but that statement that we put on the bottom on our ticker down there, you know, that basically is going to shape the conversation that we're going to have tonight. Mm-hmm. Because I think it's from that perspective, what does it mean to be a U.S. citizen is what is going to shape this conversation tonight. And the conversation that we're going to have it's it's about what we talked about, and I think it was what we put out around everywhere. And then it's like, do we vote or shouldn't we vote? Do you have to vote? Should you have to vote? I mean, all of those different things. We're right here in this space right now of the prime. I mean, the election is right around the corner. The next time we come on, we will have a new president elect. Um, and yet, the conversation, I don't believe, is going to be over um, because of the environment that we're in. But that being set aside, we want to have the conversation. But before we do, let's just welcome everybody. If you're a first time visitor, thank you for coming out tonight. If you're from my meetup group, thanks for coming in. And by all means, get involved. Let us know where you're from in the comments. Let us know that you're here, and get involved. We want to hear your input. We want to hear what you have to say. Be a part of the conversation. Chime in whenever possible. If you want to share your opinion, we're here. We want to hear your opinion. In addition, if you've ever been here before, welcome back. And I think we're going to have a great conversation. If you do have anything that you hit the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you don't know who we are, because we haven't said much about that, we are Clear Journey is a sponsor of this podcast, and it is a nonprofit that supports individuals that are looking for answers to life's challenges. Doesn't really matter what it is, because we talk about the attitude that allows you to navigate all of life's challenges. And I'm an author of a book called Love Made Simple, The Guide to Inner Peace, Contentment, and Success. And it's through those principles that I share in that book that allows us to have the mindset that we need to be able to navigate life successfully. If you want to make more about it, it's on Amazon, it's on Audible. Please, if you want to support us, have the opportunity to go and purchase that book, and it will help us a lot. Or you can go to our YouTube channel or to our website, which is what was up on there before, and learn more about Clear Journey there. And by all means, if you feel it in your heart to support us by donating so that we can continue this with your support, we would really appreciate that. My name is Juan Lee. That's Oliver Marcel. And we're here every Wednesday night. And we're here to share with you, support you, encourage you in this journey called life. So that being said, we want to get into it. Or you got something you want to add to it?
Well, let's get into it. I put up the comment from LinkedIn user. Sorry, it doesn't show us your name. It just says LinkedIn user. It says, love this topic. It's hot. It needs to be addressed. All right.
Welcome.
We're going to address it.
And let us hear what your thoughts are, because I guess, again, like I said, this conversation is structured, and it really is around what does it mean to be a U.S. citizen. And I think everybody has their own interpretation or have their own answer to that question. But it's that answer to that question is just going to really dictate how this conversation, or what this time and season in our country is all about.
Yeah.
And got some questions, and we're going to just kick it off and just get started with the first one. Do you believe voting is a duty or simply a personal choice in a democracy, a democratic society?
So I can already tell that I'm going to be somewhat controversial in this conversation. And I'm not going to do so for the sake of being argumentative. I'm actually going to do so for the sake of actually getting people who hear this to just think, because I think what's happening in this day and age is that people aren't really taking the time to think for themselves. We live in a soundbite age, and these sound bites are dictating our ideology. So with that preface, here's my answer to that question. I believe that it is both. Now, I'm going to tell you the reason why I say I believe it's both. I believe that if you, and this is going to come up probably in a different question, but if you feel like you're in a environment, in a community, in a nation where you have some level of skin in the game on any level, then you do have a duty to lend your vote, your opinion to what happens, because what happens may, to some degree, on a small scale or large scale, affect the skin you have in the game. Which also lends itself to being a personal choice, because maybe you don't feel like you have skin in the game. Or maybe you have skin in the game, but you don't feel like you're low enough on the totem pole that whatever happens up there doesn't matter. And that is your choice.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you this question, that being the case then.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in context of what does it mean to be a U.S. citizen? Because that skin in the game,
Mm-hmm.
I believe is based in that question.
I would agree with that, because if you're looking just from a purely like definition standpoint, right? It's a legally recognized subject or national of a state or commonwealth, either native or naturalized, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a citizen, what does it mean to be a U.S. citizen? It means that if you're a citizen, you are a thread in the fabric of this entire nation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if we think about it from that aspect, if I pull a thread from this shirt, I run the risk of changing the configuration of the shirt. If it's a sweater, I run the risk of unraveling the whole entire thing, right? So if you look at it like that, then everybody has a duty to protect the integrity of the sweater. In this case, we're talking about the nation. So as a citizen, you have a duty to protect the integrity of the nation. And if you are just out there in I don't care land, you run the risk of not protecting the integrity. Now, the pushback that I know that people will have or do have is, I'm just one person. That's
Yeah.
always the pushback. What
Yeah,
what difference can I make?
yeah, but one makes up the whole. You can't have a whole without, you can't subtract. See, this is what I'm saying. I think we have to realize that the whole is made up of all these ones.
Right.
It's made up of all these ones.
It is.
I mean, and to understand, first of all, that the democracy in which is really a republic. And again, if we've had this conversation before, the republic is that you have to elect representatives
mm-hmm.
for you, because everybody can't go and do the day-to-day mundane things that are required to be able to have a government operate.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got to be able to elect someone it's going to be there on our behalf. That's the Senate and the Congress, and even the president, to a certain degree, is like you got to elect someone. So voting, when you say a duty or simply a personal choice, and I agreed with you when you said, I think it's both. Here's the point. It should be a both.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you think about it, should be a duty and you should want it to be your choice. You should want to do it. I mean, it's your, like you call it, it's your skin in the game. Your vote is your skin in the game.
Mm.
And apart from your vote, you really don't have anything else in the game. So is it like, are you willing to participate in the game?
Mhm. Yeah, listen. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, because keep it real. I mean, I hear you saying what you say, but I mean, keep it real. What's the pushback of being a part of something, identifying with and recognizing that you are significant and important to this process?
I think that's the key, right? Pushback aside, I think the real question is, how do we get people to recognize and accept that they are a valued part of the process? Because the pushback is, I'm not a valued part of the process.
And
It don't
okay,
really matter. It don't really matter what I do, because whatever's going to happen is going to happen anyway. And it ain't really going to affect me all the way, trickle down guy in the hood.
let's stop right there.
Mhm.
Why do we feel that way? Why do we feel like this? We're not relevant? Because
That's the
I
question.
get, because the question right there, if you are a citizen, you're relevant.
Interesting.
I mean, you are relevant. There are people dying to come here to be relevant. They're trying to,
Right.
I mean, the people are dying to come here to be relevant. Just to be here, to be a citizen, as your definition says, naturalized or born, basically here. That's what it means. That's the relevancy.
Mhm. It, yeah, listen, I'm not. I don't. I don't dispute that at all. But it's still how it's still, how do we get people to recognize that? Because that's not that. Although you and I understand that the way you said it, that's not, that answer is not going to suffice for some others.
I know, because of the plight of the black man,
Mhm.
that most people who come to this country came by choice.
Mhm.
Black people didn't. But that doesn't change the fact that we are citizens. Now, granted, this is the journey that we've been on, because our journey has been, we've had to gain that right through partially throughout our experience. You
Mhm.
know, we were the 3/5.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. And now we are a whole representative. And what does it mean?
Mhm.
It's your vote at the core. It gives you the right, it gives you relevance. And
Yeah.
if we can't see that, voting doesn't mean anything, because it's at the, I mean, voting is at the foundation of the citizenship.
And listen, I'm with you. All I'm saying is that I think that I think the answer to how do we convince people of that is maybe a broader conversation.
What's the obstacles? Because again, if we can't get to this, we see
I'd like to hear from some people that who feel that way, because I mean, that's
that
I
feel,
so
feel what way.
that feel that answer, that it's not it's not as simple as accepting that I'm, you know, significant enough to make a difference.
Well,
Um,
see, I mean, I think you put that difference on there, that make a difference part on there.
mhm.
If you can't see your own value, you're not going to be able to see yourself making the difference.
Mhm.
If you don't see your own value, and that's why I'm saying that question that's strolling around the bottom is like, if you can't see the value in being a U.S. citizen, your value, then voting is going to be nothing. It's not even something that you can, because see, we get caught up in whether or not it's going to make a difference,
Mhm.
and that's really not the question, because make a difference implies what is it going to do for me.
Mhm.
But that voting is really not about me as an individual. It's about collectively sharing your opinion or sharing your thoughts. It's collectively expressing your thoughts.
Mhm.
And it might not turn out your way.
Yeah.
And that doesn't change the fact that it's necessary. I'm not going to say that, but
So,
it's that you're relevant.
okay.
Just because you're the person that you wanted to win doesn't mean that you're not relevant.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, if there's someone who has an opinion or have a thought or want to input on that, that'd be great. I'd be like to hear whether or not that's a vote. But we're going to move on to the next question,
All right.
because how do you feel your vote contributes to shaping the future of your community or your country?
And
Again,
that goes right.
again,
Yeah.
but here's the how do you feel if you're saying it doesn't?
So you want my honest opinion? I'll be
Yeah,
honest. I'll be
yeah.
honest. I This is how I feel personally.
Mhm.
Personally, I feel like where it matters for me personally is locally. So I live in Northwest Baltimore County. So the county executive, uh, the uh, the folk that are put in place, the school board folks, the like that boots on the ground level of government is what matters. I know that's a tricky word, but that's the piece that matters to me. And that's the piece that I also feel like in terms of my skin in the game, that's the piece that more directly affects me. Now, I'm not saying that what happens at the top doesn't. Like what's going on in DC doesn't affect me. I'm not saying that. But for I'm just me personally, this is just me sharing my personal opinion. The grand scheme of that, I feel very far removed from. Whereas the local piece, I know that if the county executives make some dumb move, then me and my neighbors gonna be caught out there. Like for example, the whole situation with all the accidents that happen on this street, and the person who is the representative right now, he don't really seem to care about that. That directly affects us. So we we need somebody who cares. So you know what I'm saying? Obviously, I'm not going to sit by and not vote because the potential of dealing with him not caring continues. But I don't always see I'm not always able to connect those dots from A to B as easily up top. So do I feel my vote contributes? Absolutely. But generally when I'm saying absolutely, I'm thinking about Northwest Baltimore County. I'm not thinking about the nation.
I get you. I get you. I'm gonna throw something at you that's very interesting. That's relevant to that statement that you just made about it being local.
Mm-hmm.
You all had a bridge that collapsed.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Shut the city down. Commerce.
Mm-hmm.
That bridge is not going to get back up for at least 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore needs the federal government
True.
to put that bridge back up.
True.
The federal government are going to be those congressmen and senators are going to vote on whether or not Baltimore is going to get the funds
Mm-hmm.
available to them, made available to them from the nation's purse to build that bridge back up sooner than later.
Yeah, I agree with that.
This is a direct implication of the bigger picture.
I could see that.
The
I could see
bigger picture.
I could
And
see that.
and I say that because there's a thread like that in every city, in every
Yeah,
state,
yeah,
because the
I agree.
only reason that they have a representative in the Congress in DC
Mm-hmm.
is because they are supposed to be laboring or lobbying for the interests of the people back home.
And I think for many people, and I understand what you're saying, and I agree 100%. I think for many people, that piece of the puzzle is the local piece that connects us to the bigger picture. So we definitely want to be real careful between also Brooks and Hogan and who we put, because we got to have somebody who can play the game, and we got to have somebody who has some leverage, and we got to have somebody who has some understanding, and we got to have somebody who knows how to politic and how to maneuver and how to network, right? So yeah, I agree with that. That's the local piece of the puzzle. That's the local dot that connects.
Well, yeah, because here's the thing: the bridge is significant because it just happened, and it's a tremendously terrible thing that happened to the city of Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
But we can break it down. Just the roads. Most funds come from federal funds to keep the roads open, funded just and keep the roads clean. Now, granted, is every road perfect? No, absolutely not. Are people in the way of being able to do what they're supposed to be doing? Absolutely. But my point here is that we've got to expand our connection
Mm-hmm.
to the whole picture, because it's connected
It is.
to what's going on in your neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's connected here in DC.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about it is that many people don't know or don't want to know how significant, how it's connected. And it's interesting because today I heard a thing about, and it was like, how many people have civics anymore? The course of having civics,
Mm-hmm.
of understanding how our government works.
Yeah, we don't get that.
And it's because of that. It's this is the civics is the backdrop of what does it mean to be a U.S. citizen. It's based on what you know of being of civics. It's what you think of as it relates to what the government is supposed to do. Because in light of that definition, though, of being a citizen, the government is supposed to provide for you and protect you.
Mm.
That's a requirement of being a citizen of the United States.
Yeah, I think a lot, and we'll this will come up in the questions, because I know you got some more questions.
Yeah.
I think that, first of all, to answer question number two, the answer to question number two is yes. or how do you feel your vote contributes? First of all, it
Yeah.
does contribute. Yes, it does contribute. How does it contribute? It contributes because your vote allows the dots to connect in a way that potentially benefits you.
It's the only way.
Right. So and there's no denying it, right? There's no denying it.
Well, but the thing that you brought up is that people don't feel that it does.
Right. And here's where I'm going. I'm glad you said that because here's the problem at the core. And my son said this last night, and I agree. Um, much of this is emotionally driven, and because it's emotionally driven, once you allow your emotions to drive this, you're not going to be looking at the fundamentals. You're not going to be looking at how the dots connect. You're not going to be looking at the policies and procedures. You're going to be looking at, oh, I don't like what he said, or I don't like what she did, or I don't feel like this, or I don't feel like that. And that diverts us down a very different path that will never allow us to actually connect the dots.
You do know that that's a part of the political game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Because we're hoping that people will use that to cast a vote
yeah, yeah,
in favor of whatever, right?
yeah,
Um and yeah, there's a lot. It's a it's a loaded topic. It's a loaded topic.
yeah. But I mean, but hopefully the it's so interesting because I have some other. I mean, there are so many variables
Hmm.
to why we do or we do not participate.
Hmm.
There's so many variables.
I agree.
Um, but
It's,
in spite of them,
hmm
that's why I'm saying the fundamentals is if when you decide that you're not going to participate, you you prevent the system or you prevent the process from operating in the way that it was intended to operate. It can't work if we don't participate. It cannot work. So it's subject to all kinds of deviances when we all don't participate. When we all don't participate,
yeah.
it's
And
almost like, okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, and the cyclical damage that's caused there, I kind of leads into question number 3, but
Hit it.
the cyclical damage that's caused there is that you don't participate, it doesn't work. You're like, see, it don't work. So there ain't
But
no point in me participating, and there
yeah,
goes
but
the cycle.
yeah, but see, but the point I'm saying is when you how do you define it doesn't work?
Well,
How are you
that's gonna be relative to the person.
but it
They
but
might be
that
looking at it from different vantage points.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's my point. I'm saying it working has nothing to do with you or I, how we feel about it.
Hmm.
It ain't got nothing to do with that. It's working means that the you went through the process. The process was allowed to happen. So I hate to use this, but this is very interesting that you bring this up. What Trump has been saying for the last 4 years or so is that the system is corrupt.
Hmm.
That is the worst thing that can ever happen to the system as to it being said that it's not credible. If you can, the system is the credibility of the democracy that we in. If you begin to show, to shed some type of mistrust of the system, the democracy has nothing to hold on to. The system, the democracy is made up of the system. And if you're not participating in the system, the things that you like are all a part of the results of the system. The things that you don't like are all a part of the things of the system. So it really doesn't matter whether or not who wins or not, as long as the system is held intact.
I think so. Excuse me. While I agree with that, I think that the issue for many people is that yeah, the system is important, but I also want a specific set of results from that system. And if I'm not getting a specific set of results from that system, then the system isn't in my favor to begin with. Hence my disassociation from participation.
That's that's the point you brought up in the last conversation we had about this about a month ago. And that outcome that you're looking for, anyone is looking for, has to do with how well are you participating in that system. You have got to get in the game for it to work for your benefit. You just can't stay on the sideline and expect the game to give you the results that you want. And so here's the point. You've always heard the squeaky wheel get the oil, or the squeaky wheel get the oil.
Mm-hmm.
That's politics. That's the government. That's how it works. I mean, in a very crude way, that's how squeaky wheel gets the oil. If you're not engaged in it, if you're getting something that you're not engaged in, it's not sustainable. In other words, if you don't put the work in to keep it and get it, and keep it, it's not sustainable. Because guess what? Someone else is going to come in and going to do what's important or beneficial for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it's so important when you're listening to people and they're giving you their platform and they're sharing with you what they're going to do. If what they're saying ain't in line with what you're doing, you don't vote for them. Because they're the ones that are going to affect and are going to determine whether or not what it is you like or want is going to either come to be or will continue.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go on to anybody have a question about that? Because it's the how-to part is assuming. If you're not there, you don't even see it.
Mm-hmm.
If you choose not to vote, do you feel like you should have the right to criticize the government and its policies?
People definitely feel like they have the right to criticize, even if they haven't been a part of the process. The question is, does it make sense to do that, really? And the answer to that is no.
Why would you? Why would you criticize, though, if you didn't participate?
Because we're human beings, and we're going to be critical regardless of whether we had a part to play in it or not. That's just the unfortunate. That's an unfortunate side of human nature. Like even though I had nothing to do with it, it don't look right to me. So I'm gonna be like, man, that don't look right to me. But yet you didn't really have a say in it to begin with.
it's very interesting, that question, when you said that, it made me look at criticize differently. Because criticize does not dictate change. It's just something that you want to get off your chest.
Yeah. I mean, it can it can motivate change if done the right way, but
That stop right there. That's the part.
yeah.
And that's getting in the game. But criticism alone, just because,
Hmm.
it ain't gonna do it.
No, it won't. LinkedIn user says, I believe that if you choose not to vote, you forfeit your right to complain.
I mean, that would make sense. That would make sense because, again, that's consistent with getting in the game, is the
Yeah.
right to be able to maneuver or to have a voice. But then you say you don't want a voice, but yet you want to complain.
Yeah. Listen, in a perfect world, I agree with LinkedIn user. If you choose not to vote, then you can't say anything, right? But we know, unfortunately, that that's not going to happen, and that's everywhere. That's in the political arena. That's in the faith-based arena. That's in the educational arena. That's everywhere. You are always going to have folks who did not participate, but then have a whole lot to say about what's not happening, right?
Okay, but here's my point. What's the value? What's the purpose of that?
I now you would have to ask that to them, though. I don't
No,
know.
but I'm just
I
saying
don't
that
know what the purpose in that is.
that human nature is for what purpose?
I don't even know that it serves a purpose. I think that's just an unfortunate component of human nature, that you're just going to have people who complain. I mean, you look at, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. You're going to have folk who make some crazy judgment call based on some sound bite that you put on social media. They don't know you. They haven't talked to you. They haven't had a conversation. They haven't asked a question about to get clarification on what you were talking about. They just make a judgment call. That's just, unfortunately, that's where we're at with the human race. Like, there's always going to be people who do that. Now, what point does it serve? It don't. Some people just like to hear themselves talk. Some people want it. There's a plethora of reasons, right? Some people want to hear themselves talk. They just always got something. They just nitpicking all the time, right? Then you have some people who are looking for a way to justify their lack of participation to make themselves feel better. See, that's why I didn't do it, because da 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 da. So it ain't even so much about the da 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 da. They just want to be like, see, okay, I feel better now that I didn't participate. Because look,
You remember when we started earlier and I said to you that the election will be over, but it really won't be over
hmm
this time next week?
hmm
What you've just said is what validates, is what I was talking about.
hmm
Because the system says, okay, that we'll know, and we all have to accept the truth or accept the count.
hmm
But what you're just saying is that no, we don't. We don't have to accept it. And now what we do, because we don't accept it, it is what it is. So the logic behind it is there is none. But the fact is that, based on what you're saying, is that it's human nature. I lost. I'm gonna be upset. And see, that's what I'm saying, is unless we establish a common foundation, your opinion or your perspective is always going to rule your emotions.
hmm
And your emotions are going to lead you into your actions. And I think that's the thing that I'm really trying to help and assist people in the sense that we can't be led by our emotions. We can't. It will not serve us in the long run. And the only way that we can do that is to have something else to ground us into something that we all have in common. And that's why I'm saying if we can't agree that this United States is that we have something in common about it, that who wins is not the issue here. It's the process that we're trying to protect. And if you don't see the process as being the ultimate goal here, that kind of devalues everybody. So now you have a selected people, a selected few that participate, and then those that participate are the ones that are going to rule what goes on, because those are the ones that are participating. So when you come to criticize, it's like water off the back of a duck. It's just going to roll right off. Because typically to participate, you know how to participate. You know how to engage. But when you just complaining, you don't know how to engage. Because sometimes you don't even need to be a complainer to make things happen, to change. You just need to know who and what and where to go to make it happen.
Yeah. This is a topic for another day too, but participation goes way beyond casting a vote. And I think that that's where some people, that's where the disconnect is for some people, right? Because if you think about it, right? So I went to and I'm guilty of this just as much as the next person. I went to a town hall meeting, right? Now, the town hall meeting is for all of Randallstown. Now, I don't know the population off the top of my head, but I know that the population of Randallstown ain't 25 people, because that's all that was there. It's more than 25 people on my block, right? So participation goes way beyond, and again, another conversation for another day. But in terms of that system that you're talking about, that's the buck of that system doesn't stop when you put your ballot in.
Let's just talk about real quick. Why people, is it that they don't I said civics, civics class and understanding the system. But if there was a perfect world, do you think people would participate? If they got everything they wanted, if they could get everything that they wanted from participating. Now, go ahead and answer, but I'm just like,
I mean, I think that excuse me, I think that the percentage of engagement would raise significantly. I don't know if we get everybody, because there's always one, but I think that the percentage of engagement would raise significantly. I feel like there are a few contributing factors, and I don't know them all, right? But I'm just going to share what I think. I think there is. You talked about civics, right? I think there is a lack of knowledge around the process and what's involved and how you can contribute. I think there is some lack of knowledge there. There's some people who, I promise you, that if you tell them that meeting took place that I went to, they would be like, I never even heard of that before. I didn't even know that existed. Right. So there's that lack of knowledge piece. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I think that there is that emotionally driven, well, I've been hurt before kind of mentality, so it ain't no point to it, right? And then you have other components of that fall in between those two spectrums. But um and what do we do about that? I think that's a broader conversation as well. Like, from the educational standpoint, how do we, increase the level of exposure? Um, I like when I see, these programs that are, teaching the young folks about government and teaching them about, you know, due process and engaging them in a way that causes them to see that, wow, I am part of the fabric, so maybe we slowly but surely integrate, those individuals who are, because they're going to be the next leaders anyway, integrating them into uh, this thing in a way that causes us to see it a little bit differently. So I'm gonna tell you right now, even from the grown adult vantage point, it's just in terms of this race that's coming up, it's literally kind of come down to who do I hate less, and that ain't no way to make a choice. Number one, or it's coming down to who lines up with a personal belief that I have. And whether they're there or not is not going to affect your personal belief. So that ain't no reason to make a decision either. Like I'm hearing, these pastors who are like, there's no way in the world you could vote for Harris. Because a vote for Harris is a vote for killing your children. No, it ain't. Whether she there or not, you still gonna have to make that decision based on your personal belief. So that's a ludicrous reason to choose a candidate. You know what I'm saying? Like that's and that's kind of where we're at right now. And that's the unfortunate part of this whole thing is that it's not people aren't looking at it how you're describing. It's emotionally driven, it's emotionally charged, it's I like peanut butter and she likes peanut butter, so that's who I'm voting for. Like, come on, folks. Like, this is crazy. Like, how's that gonna help?
That again, I get what you're saying, and I think we're mixing apples and oranges. And then this is where we got to the last time we talked about this, and that is whether or not you come out of the process on the winning side or not is not what's significant to the process that takes place. And I said that, I think this was the last thing I said last time. I said the secondary thing is who wins, not the primary thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the primary thing here. It's not. It's the primary thing in the sense that if one side does not adhere to the system and wants to change the system, all of those things that you like about the system could go away. Even though it's not perfect, those things that you do like could go away. And so the object here is to maintain the continuity of the system versus any individual benefits that you could make or gain from either one. And I think that's when we focus on our individual desires. Now, you get to cast your vote from an individual perspective. But the collective outcome should not be the thing that divides us. It's the system that we are participating in that should adhere and bind us together. Is the right that I had the right to participate in the system. It's the right that you have to participate in the system. That's what it means to be a citizen. And I know it seems like it's something that doesn't affect you when you have, and me and I and everybody else have to consider very fundamental things. But it's sort of like, who likes to have to spend money on things like plumbing, electricity, until you go to flush your toilet, until you go to plug in your television. It's what you want, but the thing that lays that line down so you can flush the toilet or plug up your telephone is the infrastructure, the stuff that nobody sees. That's the system. And we worrying about our television when there ain't no electricity running to our house. That's what it seems like. We're focusing on the wrong thing. We talking about apples and oranges. We talking about the color TV, the nice car, the nice house, but there ain't no streets on your block. There ain't no electricity running to your house, no water running to your house, and you concerned about what's on the walls. We got to see things. We got to see a bigger picture, and it might not necessarily always feel good, but if we don't see the bigger picture, and you can focus on the narrow things, like what you were talking about, a person's right to do what they want to do with their body, how that is how is that a subject for discussion in an election is beyond me. But that's what we're focusing. People are focusing on things, and they go like, why is that? How is that an issue? How has that become a question? And they have turned it into a question. Unfortunately, in our country, in this country, it has been a question in the past. And we've gone backwards rather than forward on that issue. And here we are revisiting it again. It's amazing. It's amazing. Hey, let's run through these questions real quick, and I'm not going to get you out of here because I know you got something that what factors must influence your decision to participate? And I think we talked about it, and abstain you from voting. I get it. I mean, I think we all have those factors, but we really have to look at the bigger picture. Next one. Do you think voting actually leads to change, or is it just symbolic gestures and leading to in a larger system? I think we talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about that. And I think just to kind of reinforce what you're saying, like that ideology, that mentality that you describe in terms of the system being paramount, that's a shift in thinking that like really needs to be taught. Like I'm just kind of thinking out loud. I'm like, man, how do you how do you overhaul that system? This is not a question to answer, obviously, right now, but how do you overhaul that system of thinking so that people view the process in the way you're describing? I'm just thinking out loud. But yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it needs to be spoken, and unfortunately, it's only spoken when we get into a state like this, a situation where voting becomes an issue, because this is how we should be living and being conscious of the things that are going on in our neighborhoods. And when we get an opportunity to understand that the things that are happening in our neighborhood are directly in line with these choices that we have as being citizens.
Mhm.
And that's the rights that we have, the benefits that we've gained. So number 6, real quick, before we gotta let you go, we're gonna go. Have you ever felt that your vote didn't count or make a difference? Unfortunately, these things are reasonings why people aren't participating.
You're right, and it's based on these emotionally driven
Mhm,
scenarios
mhm.
or these personal beliefs that this group of people don't align themselves with, and so all of a sudden, what I did didn't count.
Yeah,
I think the criteria is skewed on what's even supposed to count.
yeah. All right, what you got? Number 7. Should anyone ever should everyone be encouraged to vote, or do you believe only informed citizens should take a part in the voting process?
That's a loaded question.
Absolutely. I mean, it's loaded, but it's really quickly to the point. I mean, because you got people that are not informed that are going to vote.
I would really much rather, like, I don't want to be exclusive in the sense of say that you can't vote if you're not informed, but it would really be to your advantage to know what you're doing when
Well,
you get in that booth. Like,
I mean, that's a whole nother level, because as it relates to being informed versus not participating at all. If you had a choice of not being informed and participating, or not participating, either way, which is worse?
yeah, I don't even know which is worse because if you participate, even if you're not informed, you keep the system moving.
There
But
you go. You are participating now, whether or not what you do with that, whether or not it's going to be in your own best interest,
right,
because now that's the additional part to it. That's the extra level of participating, is that it's in your own best interest.
right, which you need to be informed to know that.
Yeah. All
Uh,
right.
Yeah, that's interesting one. That could be a whole conversation in and of itself.
Here's the one I think that is the real interesting. In your opinion, what are the pros and cons of mandatory voting in a democracy?
Uh,
Mandatory.
yeah. What are the pros? I guess the pros, just real quick off the top of my head, the pros would be you would ensure that the system would continue to operate. The cons, though, is that uh, we potentially are all over the place.
No, I mean, here's the thing. Making something mandatory is already a challenge to the democracy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that goes without saying. Like that
See,
that's counterintuitive to the whole process to begin with.
to the system. So it's almost as though you are forcing someone to participate in something that's their own best interest, and that's contrary to what it's supposed to be. The interest that it is inevitably is the right to participate.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's a really tricky question.
Hmm.
Okay, next. How important is it to research candidates and issues before you're voting, and what are the resources do you do to fight to trust the information? Now that's really interesting, because that is the reason and the problem that a lot of us run into, is that we're using false or with false information.
Yeah, we're not using the right sources. Like we're living off of these sound bites. We're in the
And that's the
sound
point.
age. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like we're living off of these sound bites. We don't have any context to the sound bite. We're not privy to the entire conversation, and we're making judgment calls that lead us to an emotional space.
Yeah, that's basically where we are, and that's what you were saying early on. Is that's where we end up.
Yeah.
Last one. How do you think voters turnout or lack thereof impact the into what is that?
Impacts the legitimacy of
Legitimacy of the democracy.
Democrat.
Democracy. Say the word. Democratic government.
Yeah. How does it impact the legitimacy of a democratic government? That's a great question. That's a great question. I mean, lack of voter turnout. I mean, does it impact the legitimacy of a democratic government, or does it unravel the system?
Same thing in this regard. It's the same thing.
Okay.
Because what it's talking about then, and in this case, it's talking about if there wasn't enough people participating in it, could it be a real sound, a sound decision for the democratic government? Because again, it's supposed to be for the people, by the people, and if the people don't participate, if there's not a, because again, whoever wins the election tomorrow or this next week, nobody's going to get over 50%. Maybe they might get 51% on either side. So all they're looking for as it relates to a majority is, and here's the thing. This time there probably will be a good portion of people. They probably might even get to maybe 52%. Either one. In other words, that means that about half of the people that are registered to vote, that's what those numbers are, is going to be based on how many of those people will either side get of the ones that are registered. So anyway, where do we go from here? Hopefully after next week, it'll be over. Whether it will not, I think it's yet to be determined. But I think it's something that we need to be doing, is educating ourselves as much as we can to be informed citizens, as representing the country and the nation that we are part of. It says the United States. Are we united? Are we one?
I'll tell you this. I feel like we in for an interesting ride,
to say the least. I think
we're in for an interesting ride.
I think the worst is yet to come. So hate to be the
that sounds like a very that sounds like a very doom and gloom way to end. But
here's I know that did sound pretty doom and gloom.
We in for I mean, it just is what it is. We in for an interesting ride. I mean, it just is what it is. It's not like it's not even about trying to be doom and gloom. It's not about none of that. It's life.
And the thing about it is unfortunately, we are bringing it on ourselves.
Yeah. LinkedIn user said it's going to be a roller coaster ride for the next month or so.
You're absolutely right.
Listen, LinkedIn user, I dare say it's going to be a roller coaster ride for the next 2.5 years.
Oh man, don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that. Jeez, don't say that.
Because when we hit January, whoever is that person that gets inaugurated, now we're looking at 2025. and all that that person will attempt to start doing. So we're looking at least a 12-month span where we're like, man, what's happening?
Let's pray and hope that it's quicker. It's quicker than that, because I don't know how much we as a country um, can can sustain the dividedness, the divisiveness that
I
we
agree.
currently
I
have.
agree with that. I agree with that. I agree with that. Like we
Don't know
don't want to
how.
we do not want to reach a breaking point.
Yeah, I don't know how much. I don't know how much more we can take
Yeah.
as a country. So Oliver, let people know where they can reach you.
Listen, if you're a social media person, that's the social media handle right there, Denali LLC. Everywhere you are, if you are not familiar with who I am, I'm an author, speaker, and coach in the relationship building and men's spaces, author of the book Overcoming the Man Laws for the man who wants to be his best despite what he was taught. Passionate about seeing relationships thrive. So you can reach out to me anywhere on social media using that. If you are an email person, then you can use the email that is on your screen. Would love to have a conversation with you.
Yes, 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 and also reach out to him. Again, if you want, I know this is not. Again, this is what Clear Journey is all about. Is about educating, informing, giving you the resources that you need, so that you can navigate life. What we're going through right now is life, and it is something that we need. Everybody needs to navigate it in a manner in which we can be successful collectively. And I think that's the thing that we have to be focused on, is collectively. How does this thing work to solve something for us all, and not just us as an individual? We've got to stop thinking about this from an individual's perspective and think about it as a collective. We are one nation.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can't go and have a discussion, or a be a part of the system and say, okay, we're in this together, no matter what the outcome is, we're in it together.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to go through this together. There's no one person that's going to be able to sit on the sideline and feel like they're not going to be or going to be affected by whatever happens over the next week and a half or the next week. But regardless as to what happens, we're going to be back here next week
Mm-hmm.
again. And hopefully we won't be talking about this, but we do have a guest next week. And as usual, we can't change lives, guys. I know we run over, but we surely want to help you navigate it more successfully. Until next week, we'll see you then.
Shout out to LinkedIn user who was part of this conversation. Said thank you so much. This was thought provoking. Hey,
Thank you very
and
much.
that's what it's supposed to be. So thank you for being here, and we will see you next time.
All
Later.
right.